Welcome to 2017. We're going to be talking about success and what it means to be the successful male. And we have Ron Malhotra here talking about his mission of talking to 1 million, educating 1 million men across the globe to be in hot pursuit of becoming a successful male. That's a pretty big goal. So welcome, Ron.
Thank you so much for having me. Am I your first guest for 2017? Am I?
You are. Indeed you are. So you're
I feel privileged. Thanks for having me.
So tell me about your mission. How did it come about? What brought about your mission?
The mission to affect 1 million men. Well, I know it's a daunting mission, but if I was going to set a goal for myself, it was going to be a big goal. Now, just to give you some idea around the successful male concept, the successful male concept is a byproduct of my own personal experiences as a male who was just blindly chasing the money, acting macho. I had a lot of issues around ego and failed to connect with people. I failed to connect with my own self. And, that was me in my early 20s. And now in my late 30s, I have been able to design a life that is exactly to my liking. So the successful male concept was, I guess, a consequence of understanding that I'm not the only man that has gone through that experience. Absolutely. I mean, I was very fortunate in that, CGI, I was able to afford being mentored by some of the best people. So I looked at the best of success principles, best mindset principles, best leadership principles, and I looked at all of the best practices in the world, and I attempted to bring them all together in the one place. Because there was nothing like it. There was people were talking about improving yourself in different areas, but they were only giving you part of the solution. So what I wanted to do was to bring it all together, so it was holistic and it was structured, that you can't go and you can't be a thought leader if you've never led other people, and you can't lead other people if you don't know how to lead yourself. So you have to start from the basics. So what I've tried to do is incorporate all of that: money principles, business principles, and the principles never change. The best things about principles is that the fads change, the strategies change, but the principles never change. So if you go back to the principles, you can't go wrong, because principles are time tested. And so the successful male movement was really designed around redefining success for men, so that success was perceived from a holistic perspective, as opposed to just material or financial success, which is predominantly how success is perceived by men at the moment. So.
Yeah, it's interesting because you mentioned, I'm wondering whether part of this is just, you're talking about you had a sense of what success was like in your 20s, and then you started looking at that and rethinking about that. How much of it do you think is just that shift from your 20s to your 30s? Do you think that was part of it for you, and what was that shift like for you?
That's a really good question. If that was the case, I think if age was the reason that people achieved a level of maturity and wisdom, then we would find that most people, as they get older, would be wiser and more successful. We know that that's not the case. For me, certainly.
You're not finding that the case with the people for the men that you're talking about, that the men in their 30s have a little bit more wisdom?
No, I'm just saying that, I don't think age is the predominant determinant of wisdom. I mean, we know that a lot of people just get older, but the wisdom doesn't really increase. Certainly there are people that get better and smarter and more wiser as they get old, but there is a lot of people that don't. So I don't think that it was just a consequence of age. Surely, I'm certain that there is a level of maturity that comes with age itself. But for me, it was an intentional process. I was very determined to find out why is it that some people achieve such a high level of success and fulfillment, and why is it that vast majority of people struggle to design a life that is to their liking. We look around and you find that so many people are stuck in jobs that they don't like, in relationships that they don't like, they find themselves in situations they don't like, they're struggling financially. And so for me, success is not something that happens accidentally. Growth is not something that just happens. You have to be intentional about it. I was certainly intentional about it, but having said that, my process of growth was very haphazard, because I didn't have a structure, I didn't have a system, I didn't have a framework. And so what I'm attempting to do now is, when I look back and I connected the dots as to see how I've got to where I am today, I thought, well, if I had to put some structure around this concept and provide a framework that systematically showed men what the foundations of success are, and then how to build on that in a way that success is holistic and it combines both extrinsic factors and intrinsic factors. What could that look like, and how should we put that together? So that was, I guess, for me, the primary driver behind the successful male movement. But it was also looking at statistics, the overwhelming statistics around men's suicide, depression, substance abuse, violence. All of that would reveal that there is a problem and it's not being addressed. But my approach is slightly different in that rather than providing a forum for men to come together and vent their anger and their frustration and talk about their problems, we are very solution orientated. So we say, well, let's come up with an aspirational concept that looks at men becoming the best version of themselves. And when they're busy developing themselves, they're not going to have time to think about all their problems and issues. So the best way to get away from darkness is to turn the light on. You don't need to talk about the darkness. And so we're a little bit different. It's not a men's group where men come together and vent their frustrations and their anger and their alcohol problems, and it's not about that. It's about preventing the problem from happening in the first place.
Right. So then you were talking about you preventing a structure, a system, and a process to help people and to look at it holistically. And you're looking at what are the main kind of foundational pillars to making that happen. So what are the kind of key pillars? I don't know how you talk about it in your system, but what are the key aspects that you're looking at?
Correct. And so that's actually a really good question. So success traditionally has been identified in monetary terms. For most people, a subconscious belief is we see somebody that has money and we say that person's successful. But what if that person is not aligned with who they are? What if that person is not doing something that they're passionate about? What if that person doesn't have genuine influence? What if people don't like this person? What if this person doesn't have character and they're not respected in their community, in their industry, in their country? What if this person is not an authentic leader? What if this person is not making a difference? What if this person is not making an impact? Are they really successful? So what we have done is we have looked at redefining success to incorporate all of those concepts.
That's a lot. I wrote down like 6 of them. So it's passion.
Well, we have 27 concepts.
27.
We have 27. Yeah, and incorporating things like confidence, emotional intelligence, tapping into your creative faculties, leading yourself, leading others, identifying your purpose, communication skills, influence skills, leadership skills. I mean, there's a lot in there.
So
Professional
there are like 27
impact, personal
different.
impact.
So you're almost
27 different modules.
Yeah. So then you have 27 different modules that. So you would be pretty busy. So you have all these different things that you're working on for your own personal development. And then how does when you actually look at the 27 modules, and I'm sure you've stepped people through these 27 modules, which are the ones that are the trickiest ones to handle, the ones that men get most, hung up on or have trouble with?
Well, I think the first thing we need to do is we need to look at what is a whole human being? If we ask ourselves the question, what is a whole human being?
Right.
In my opinion, and based on all the research that I have done, a whole human being is somebody that has found a good blend and has understood how to find the right combination of being a person that knows how to use their mind, body, spirit, and heart. A lot of people are very intellectually focused. So, they might be successful in the academic world, they may be successful in the professional world, but they have lost touch with their feelings. They're not spiritually connected, or maybe they're even unhealthy physically, they're not fit and healthy. So for us, it's about bringing the best of mind, body, heart, and spirit and putting it together to provide some of the world's best practices and strategies on holistic success.
Right. So I'm hearing that potentially one of the problems may be, so you're saying that if you look at mind, body, and spirit, that mind is one of those things that we've fully cultivated and developed, but maybe spirit or body is not. So how do you go about those two aspects when in your program?
Well, your first question was, what is the biggest challenge? The biggest challenge is to cause a paradigm shift for men to first perceive success from a different perspective, rather than seeing success in its traditional terms, looking at success holistically. That's the first challenge we have. Second challenge we have is, even though when we look at men that are successful in the professional world or financially, they may have highly evolved intellectual faculties, but they may not have intuitive faculties that are very, very important, or creative faculties that are still required for success.
Mm-hmm.
So we know that the mind is, there's the conscious mind, there's the subconscious mind, and there's a lot of study into the superconscious mind,
Mm-hmm.
which is probably not, it's probably not in the scope of this discussion today. But the reality is a lot of people don't understand that it is not what we know consciously that determines our outcomes in the long term. It is the unconscious programming that is running inside of us that is getting us to think, feel, and act in certain ways.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the other challenges, is for people to understand this particular concept, embrace it, because until they understand and embrace it, they're not going to see the need to change anything.
Mm-hmm. Are you saying if once they understand and appreciate that there's a holistic definition of a paradigm shift that's required, and then also once they understand that there is more than just your conscious mind, that there's a unconscious and and superconscious, those kinds of things. Is that what you mean, or did you mean all of the things?
Well, we absolutely look at then people understanding how the mind works.
Uh-huh.
It's if you look at one of the biggest contributors of life success, it is how we think.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a lot of people think that they think, but do they think, or is it just mental activity? Because thought has to be organized towards an objective.
Mm-hmm.
So the mental disciplines around success are extremely important. And today, if you look at the world, the way the world is, we are distracted by consumerism, we're distracted by sex, we're distracted by entertainment, we're distracted by sports. And so what is happening is a lot of people live from the outside in,
Mm-hmm.
where how they feel is based on what is happening around them,
Mm-hmm.
rather than feeling good from the inside and affecting the world around them. So one of the things that we do is we say to people that as long as you feeling good or bad is dependent on the outside world, you will never be intrinsically aligned and powerful.
Right. Right. You're always giving
So
your power away to people on the
you get,
outside.
correct. But here is the other thing as well. A lot of people say, Ron, I'm not in a good job, or I'm in a bad relationship, or I keep finding myself making bad investment decisions. What's going on? And in many cases, people will blame circumstances that are outside of them. They'll blame company policy, they'll blame the economy, they'll blame their bosses, they'll blame their wives. But there is something else going on. They blame everybody else but themselves.
Mm.
And one of the things that we do is, through the understanding of universal laws, law of attraction, philosophy, sociology, theology, spirituality, neurolinguistic programming, and neuroscience, we have identified the common denominators of success in terms of how outcomes are produced.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people think that, the situation that I'm in is the reason why I'm this way.
Mm-hmm.
No, it doesn't work like that. It actually works in the reverse. It's because of who you are that you keep finding yourselves in those situations.
Mm-hmm.
And here is the wonderful thing. The moment you can cause a shift in a person's perception and their thinking and their perspectives, their results have to change.
Mm-hmm. Give me a couple examples too, because I think I'm tracking what you're saying, but for someone who's not familiar with the ideas of manifestation or the law of attraction, they may be like, I'm not sure what you're talking about. So can you share with me a couple of clients that you had who, this person was having a bad relationship or had problem and blamed it on their wives, and then this is how they shifted internally on the inside and how it affected their relationship, something, or any of the, pick any of your clients just so people understand what you're talking about.
I can appreciate that, because some of these concepts on the surface level can come across as quite complex, but
Right.
once you have an understanding, they can be quite simple.
Yeah.
So let's just take an example of a person that constantly finds themselves in abusive relationships.
Mm-hmm.
They go into one abusive relationship, they come out, then they go into another abusive relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Then they come out and they go into another abusive relationship. Then they have this perception. We hear women say, all men are bastards, for example, or all men cheat, or men can't be trusted. Sometimes you hear men say, women can't be trusted.
Mm-hmm.
And so what happens is it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. A person has these fears, they have these emotions that they carry, they have these beliefs that they carry. Because of their beliefs, they continue to find themselves in circumstances that are consistent with those beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
Those circumstances then continue to reinforce the beliefs that they already have.
Right.
Then the person says, look, see, I told you this happens. It always happens. That's why I'm this way. But they don't realize that they're putting themselves in that situation not because of what they consciously believe. Because people will say, hey, Ron, obviously I don't want to end up in abusive relationships. So what's
Right.
going on? It's not me. I don't want to end up in abusive relationships. And I say to people, it is not what you want consciously.
Right. Right.
It is
Yeah.
the beliefs and the values and the self-image that you have embedded in the deep parts of your mind
Mm.
that is dictating your thoughts, feelings, and actions.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about the New Year's. I mean, we've just had in the New Year, what happens? Most people will make a resolution around health and fitness.
Right.
We find that typically, if you look at gymnasiums, the gymnasiums are packed. Now, maybe in the month of Jan and Feb, you find that a lot of people go back to the gyms and they're highly dedicated to losing weight and becoming fit. What happens in March?
Right. Yeah, they're gone. They're not there at the gym. They've
Why?
lost.
Because why? Let's talk about why that happens. So here is a person who doesn't like the results that they've got with their health and fitness, so they decide to do something about it. And what they decide to do about changing the results is to change their actions.
Mm-hmm.
So they go and change their actions. They make some commitments, they make some resolutions that they're going to wake up in the morning, they're going to eat healthy, they're going to go to the gym. So they do that for a while,
Right.
but everything that they're doing is highly dependent on their willpower.
Mm-hmm.
At a deep level, the self-image of the person has not changed.
Mm-hmm.
At the deepest level, the person's beliefs haven't changed. At the deepest level, the person's habits haven't changed.
Mm-hmm.
So willpower will only get you so far,
Right.
but it will not get you sustainable success because the programming that got you to become unhealthy in the first place is still rampant inside of you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know,
And until
yeah. Sorry. Go ahead. Well, I was
and
just,
so
I was thinking. Well, I'll tell you why I was laughing because it seemed like it was inappropriate for me to laugh before when you were saying men who think like, oh my gosh, I've actually been in this. So I was laughing because I was thinking about someone that I dated, and there was this guy who said to me, he had said, I just broke up with this woman and she was awful to me, awful. And like all women, I've just had this really bad luck with being with women who are just awful to me. And I thought, oh gosh, you poor guy. And he told me about the story of this woman, and she did seem to do kind of awful things to him. And I fell into the, oh, gosh, that's so bad, yeah, and thinking, oh gosh, I feel so sorry for this guy. And then dated him, and then 3 months later, the guy was a jerk. One, two. He 3 months later, I just thought I can't date this guy anymore, and we had been planning a trip to visit Seattle, which I've eventually moved to from San Francisco, and I just thought I can't spend another day with this guy, let alone a month backpacking through Seattle. I just can't do it. I feel bad, but I just can't do it. So maybe a week or two before we were planning, the tickets are purchased. He had planned out all these like incredible hikes. 2 weeks before, I said, I just can't go. I'm sorry. I'll pay for the tickets. I just can't do it. And so then I became a story for him to say, oh, I just dated this woman who was this awful woman who canceled on a trip, 2 weeks before I planned in Seattle, and I just thought, you know what, I didn't end, I'm not that kind of person who does that kind of thing, but I just couldn't I couldn't take it anymore, and I did something that I would probably have never done to another human being. But it's one of those things that he had this attitude going in that women are awful. They do these awful things to me. I don't know why, but they always end up doing these awful things. And I've never done a really awful thing like that to a person, but I ended up doing this awful thing to him, and I can't even tell you why. But it is
you
going.
were compelled. You were compelled to
Yeah, it
act
goes
that way.
back to the thing that you were talking about. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. So what do you?
Correct.
So anyways, that's why I was laughing, because it probably seemed inappropriate that I was
No,
laughing
you're right. And so
at your
for this
story
for
about
this
guys.
gentleman, it just reinforces what he already believes.
Yeah.
He probably sees himself as a victim, and there is no such thing as a successful victim, you see.
Yeah.
And the reason, and if you've heard that statement, there is no such thing as a successful victim, it is because successful people know the relationship between cause and effect. And the cause is always how we think.
Mm-hmm.
The cause is in the long term. Now, in the short term, things can happen that are beyond our control.
Right.
Things can happen that we may consider to be unfortunate.
Mm-hmm.
In the long term, though, your circumstances are always a byproduct of how you think.
Right.
Now, this statement itself, when I speak at events and I say this, people get very resistant. Some people get angry when I say this, because they say to me, Ron, do you mean to tell me that my business partner who cheated me and took all the money, that I caused that somehow? Now, that's an interesting question. But here's the question. What got you to a point where you got into a relationship with a business partner like that? And especially, we can understand in the short term, if it happens once or twice, it can be incidental.
Right.
But if there's a repeated pattern, there is something going on.
Yeah.
And that's what we try and we explain to people. There is something going on. It is not what you believe consciously. It's not what the words that come out of your mouth consciously. It's not what your conscious intentions are. At the deepest level, your subconscious mind will supersede everything that you know consciously if your subconscious mind is programmed for failure, mediocrity, or struggle. And so you have to go back to that programming and replace it with a type of programming that is conducive to success. And if you don't do that, you can go and change all of your actions. You can apply all the willpower in the world, but your programming will always prevail. Now, this is a concept that is not understood. Why it is not understood and it's dismissed easily is because our education system teaches us to be overly reliant on our conscious faculties of memory, reasoning, and analysis to become successful. And even the men that become successful, and I'm talking about men because of the successful male movement, but it equally applies to women.
Right.
The men that do become successful in their professional careers, because of the application of these faculties, are still not holistically successful. Why? Because they feel unfulfilled. They're stuck in jobs that they don't like, and they're just doing that because they want the money and they want the financial security. So their success is only one-dimensional.
Right.
Now, we have intrinsic success factors and we have extrinsic success factors. I mean, intrinsic success factors are things like peace of mind, passion, purpose, being aligned with your values, your strengths, confidence. These are all intrinsic success factors. You have extrinsic success factors, money, attraction, how you look, how you present. Now, you want to combine both. Holistic success means you want to have the intrinsic and the extrinsic. Because what we're now starting to see is that there is a whole breed of men that have come up that have completely gone the other side. So they've gone, I saw my parents in the corporate world, they chased the money, they were not happy, I don't want to be that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to embrace spirituality. I'm going to meditate. I'm going to sit on the beach. I'm going to sit by the beach. I'm going to be nice to people. I'm going to practice abundance. I'm going to practice gratitude. And they've gone from one extreme to another. That's not balanced either.
Yeah.
Well, that's not balanced either because these men are struggling to pay their bills. They're not having professional success. They don't have the lifestyle that they want because the practical reality of the material world is that you still need money. And with lack of money, with the less money you have, the less options you have in life, the less choices you have. So for us, it's about going, how do you combine the best of left brain thinking with right brain thinking? How do you combine that with subconscious intelligence, heart intelligence, and spiritual intelligence? And then combine all of the stuff that we can see through our eyes, the body, the presentation, the professional impact, the grooming, and all of that sort of stuff to redefine success that looks as holistic as possible. Now, it's a challenge. It's a challenge because if people are operating from such a limited paradigm where they're conditioned to think in a certain way, and I have to get them to see the bigger picture to begin with, because until they see the bigger picture, they're not going to want the transformation, you see.
Right.
We don't know what we don't know. And until they know what they don't know, they're not going to make any decisions.
Yeah, but don't you find that it's one of those key things, like they'll either not feel passion or purpose or alignment or authenticity, that kind of they know that something is off that drives them to go to your workshop and to begin with, so that they know that they have even though they may not have had your, particular definition of success, they know something is off. And it's probably one of the, one of the 27 different types of things that you're mentioning. I mean, why do people end up going to your workshop? I mean, is it because one of those things are out of alignment and they come in, it's their passion, their purpose, is that why they go to your workshop?
I think a lot of the times they come to my workshop because they're curious. They don't know what this is about. And a lot of the times they actually don't know that there's something missing. They have this sense that there's something missing, but they don't quite know what it is. Because one of the biggest prerequisites to success is not intelligence, it's awareness. And unfortunately, awareness is not something that most people have. So when they come, they don't actually know it. You see, we go through 4 stages of learning. I'll use the example of my 4-year-old daughter. My 4-year-old daughter doesn't know how to drive, but she doesn't know how to drive.
Right.
Right? So she's incompetent at driving, but she's unconscious of her incompetence.
Mm-hmm.
In the next 2 or 3 years, she'll start to become a little bit more aware, and then she'll start to realize that she doesn't know how to drive.
Right.
Then she will go from unconscious incompetence to conscious incompetence. Now she is conscious of her incompetence.
Mm-hmm.
When she turns 18, she'll learn how to drive.
Mm-hmm.
But it's going to require a lot of conscious effort on her part. She will need to literally be very thinking about and concentrating on what she's doing with the wheel, what she's doing with the accelerator, what she's doing with the brakes. And so she's going to go from conscious incompetence to conscious competence.
Mm-hmm.
Now she's competent at driving, but she's very conscious about it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But look at us now. Do you drive?
I do drive.
Well, what happens to us now? You look at after years and years of driving, what happens? You can go from one place to another and you don't even know how you got there.
Right, exactly. Right. So you're saying
You
that
don't
for the
remember
men that in your program, that they're unconsciously incompetent. They're not aware of what they're not aware of until
Correct.
you go and say, hey, actually success is all of these things, not just necessarily money. No, it's not just this, one-dimensional picture. It's
Correct.
more
Or
than
just
these things.
spirituality. Because
Right.
a lot of, as I said to you, there are some men that are highly material. There are some men that think they're highly evolved. But again, there is what's missing is the balance between all of those
Right.
elements.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. So you get
So,
both dimensions. Either someone who is like highly successful in the standard definition but not feeling internally great, or someone who may be developing and cultivating their spirituality but not in the material world looking as successful.
correct. Because we
Well,
do
that's
hear
fascinating. Yeah.
because we do hear men that are spiritually evolved saying things like money is not that important. But that's a dangerous belief because you might consider yourself to be a spiritual being having a human experience, but you still live in the material world.
Right.
And there are rules in this world. And as of now, the only system that allows us to have a great lifestyle and buy the things that we want and experience the things that we want to experience is a currency called money.
Mm-hmm.
And so we at the same time, a man who's just about money is also imbalanced.
Mm-hmm.
So what we have done, that's why what we've done is we've tried to incorporate all of those concepts: business success, financial success, leadership, influence, emotional intelligence, because we say, if you look at where men are, so let's just say, broadly, men live in one of four categories.
Right.
A lot of men live in scarcity. So scarcity is a man that says, I just want a job. Give me any job. I need to support myself. So that person is living in scarcity.
Right.
Some men evolve past that level and go to the next level, which is survival. So survival is a person that is not satisfied with just any job. He wants a good job.
Right.
I want a good job. I don't just want a job. And he's gone from not being able to support himself to finally being able to support himself.
Mm-hmm.
The third level is success. A man who wants success is no longer satisfied with a job or a good job. He wants a career. He's driven by career aspirations.
Mm-hmm.
And so this person now has gone from not being able to support himself to now being able to support himself, but now he wants to support his loved ones as well, his wife and kids, maybe his family members.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But the ultimate level is significance. Now, significance is a person who is not driven by a job or a career. They're driven by their calling,
Mm-hmm.
their deep calling.
Mm-hmm.
And they want to do work that doesn't just help themselves and their loved ones, but also helps those in need.
Mm-hmm.
They're the difference makers.
Mm-hmm.
And in the world, apparently, there was some research done that said that only 2% of people in the world want to make a difference.
What?
Now, we know that we have
It's just
2% of people in
ridiculous.
the world actually make a difference. Yeah.
I mean, make
Now,
a difference
2%
or
of seven-
want to make a difference.
Want to make a difference.
Okay,
So
that's
most people are
shocking to
either
me.
too distracted.
Right.
I don't know how they did this research. I mean, it's just
Right.
obviously just someone's. It's just
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
a
Sorry,
statement.
I'm not
somebody-
disputing the research, but go ahead. Sorry. It just seems
And-
unbelievable.
No, but it's interesting. But if you look around you, a lot of
Yeah.
people, their basic needs aren't met. So when a person's basic needs aren't met, all they're thinking about is, I want some money. I want to be able to pay my bills. I want to be able to pay the rent.
Mm-hmm.
Some men want to go to the next level. They want more. They want the mansion. They want the cars. But again, it's all driven by self-consumption and greed.
Mm-hmm.
Very few people will go to the next level and go, you know what? How can I make an impact with my life?
Mm-hmm.
How can I make a difference? How can I utilize the skills, the talents, and the gifts that I have, not only to do well for myself, but also to enhance other people's lives?
Mm-hmm.
To me, that is the ultimate form of living, and it's an inspired life.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of research shows that people that live in significance are some of the most happy, fulfilled, and successful people on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
Because not only are they successful and their needs are met, But now they have found a way to package all of their gifts, talents, and skills to add value to others.
Right. Right.
And so there's a lot of intrinsic satisfaction to be had with that. But you can't go from scarcity and survival straight to significance. You can't. Because if your basic needs aren't met and you're struggling to pay the bills and you're thinking, I'm going to have this world impact, sorry, but you're kind of delusional.
I see what you're saying. So people who are like, hey, I don't need money, I don't need any of that, you're like, well, okay, but you're kind of missing these critical stages that get to me, it's almost as if I think about human evolution going through, I think of the chakras, but it's, going through, or you can say Maslow's hierarchy of needs of going through, survival, then connection, and then it's survival. What is the two, food, money, whatever, shelter, food, connection and love, and then
Social, yeah,
acceptance, and then
self-esteem,
yeah,
and
it's almost like those
self-acceptation.
kinds of things. You're saying in some ways the people who are like, I don't need money to survive, they've kind of jumped to this current level without a really true understanding of all the other levels that are needed to move through
Yeah, and I think I
to
think
the
I
level.
think I think you need to naturally evolve and progress through the levels rather than bypassing a level because, I mean, can you lead people further than you've been yourself? Really,
Yeah, that's
that's the
true.
question.
Right.
Right, so you claim you want to be a thought leader, you want to have an impact, you want to make a difference, but here is the thing: you haven't even made a difference for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You have not barely made a difference for your family, but
Mm-hmm.
here you want to go and change the world. As noble as that intention is, and that as admirable as that is, it's not pragmatic because you have not mastered the skills to apply in your own life,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
So for us, and a lot of the times I wonder if this whole escape to spirituality or this transcending to spirituality is an escape from the material world because many men get overwhelmed by the real world challenges. So instead of tackling those challenges head on, what they do is they escape from those challenges and go, I don't like that world. It doesn't fit with my model of
Mm.
living. I'm going to denounce all of that because I don't agree with the way things are done, and I'm going to just do my own little thing here,
Right. Oh, that's
right?
interesting.
And
Yeah.
and that's a form of rebellion, which is fine. And it's and what they're doing is they're basically disillusioned by the way the world's working. But again, the way the world is working is based on their own perception.
Right.
Because you can have it all if you really, and that's what the question I asked myself was, is it possible for a man to have it all? Because growing up, I wanted to be the man that had it all. I wanted to be fit. I wanted to be healthy. I wanted to have authentic and meaningful relationships.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to have meaningful work. I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to have peace of mind.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to be successful. I wanted to be productive.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to have influence. I wanted to have impact. And so for me, and I wanted to do work that was consistent with my purpose and passion. So the first thing for me was, I need to master this. I need to be the breathing example of what I'm preaching and I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And I need to do that consistently over a long period of time
Mm-hmm.
before I have any hope that anyone's going to listen to what I'm saying.
Well, that was smart and wise of you.
Correct. But a lot of people
Right.
don't think that was common sense to me. But so many
Right.
people think that they don't need to master this stuff. They can go straight on to teaching. And that's fine because when we teach, we learn as well. And I
Right.
understand that. But here is the thing: you cannot lead people further than you have been yourself.
Yes, that's true. Yeah.
So we must be the example that we're preaching.
Right. Right. Well, what's hard is that there are notable exceptions, but I think for the majority that's true. Like there are people like I don't even know who this person is, but my husband went to the non-dualist whatever conference, and there's this guy named Adi Ashanti who's like 20 years old, and he is an enlightened being, right? And he runs around, he's an enlightened being, and he's teaching people. And I don't know how much money he makes. I don't think he even thinks about how much money he makes. He's just out talking to people, and people throw money at him. I don't know how it works, but I think that's the exception, right? That's the exception to the rule. I mean, the most of us don't have that kind of wake up, enlightened, and can like all of a sudden be sitting there having hundreds of people following us and throwing money at us. I think that, but maybe that in itself is a limiting belief. I don't know. I
Well, look, I mean, our concept is not called the enlightened man. It's called the successful male,
Right.
right? For a
Right.
reason.
Right.
Absolutely, there is a level where you get so enlightened, where you just feel that the world is not about all of this. It's actually about just being. And
Right.
I get that because it's scary when you get so close to that level where you start to go, I understand why a lot of successful people denounce the material world and they go into the ashram somewhere in the Himalayas and they meditate
Right.
because they've realized that life is not about that. They've
Right.
started to realize that the essence of their being is energy.
Right.
And I get that. But that's not what the successful male is about,
Mm.
right?
You're
We're not
saying
about
you're
that.
you're actually talking to what in Buddhism is called like a homesteader, or someone who is like they're part of this material world. They can succeed in this material world, and
Yeah.
they can rise above it as well. There are some place
Yeah,
in
a lot of
between
people
those
rise
two.
above that. They transcend that need for validation. They transcend that level of materialism. They transcend that level, that need for success.
Right.
But the successful male concept is not about that. The word success inherently means achievement. There has
Mm-hmm.
to be a component of achievement.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm quite achievement orientated, and so that's why I came up with the successful male. Now it's not for everybody. There's people,
Right.
I understand that there might be people at that level where they're going, you know what, I don't want success, Ron. Thank you very much.
Right.
No problem. That's fine. You're obviously clearly at that level where you feel so evolved that you don't need to master the ways of this planet. Good luck to you, and that's fine. No
Right.
problem. But there's a lot of men out there that enjoy. I like the real world. You see, I like
Right.
people.
They want to
I
be
like
part
the
of the material
challenges,
world. Yes, I'm with you.
but not just the material world. But I like getting into a good car. I like to have good experiences. I like to travel. I enjoy this planet.
Right.
I'm not looking to escape, right? I enjoy. There's so many wonderful things.
Right. I
And so
get
for
it.
me, so for me, it's a case of okay, let's master some life skills because we are taught all of these professional skills in the workplace and in the education system. But who's teaching us life skills?
Mm-hmm.
And Jim Rohn used to say, if you work hard on your job, you'll make a living. But if you work hard on yourself, you can make a fortune.
Mm.
And you can go through your whole life, you can go through your whole education system, you can go through the workplace, you can go through tertiary education and still not know who you are.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Don't you find that incredible?
I do
We
find
have
that
we're
incredible.
surrounded by people that are basically just following things blindly because they were told that that's just the way it is.
Mm-hmm. What I find hopeful is that, you're in your 30s, I'm in my 50s, and probably around when I was in my 40s, I started asking the questions that you started asking in your 30s, and now you're talking to people in their 20s, asking questions that you may have, asked in your 30s. I think the hopeful thing is that there is kind of a wake up call for everyone when they're like, what is the purpose? Like, is it just to sit there and I reached this again when I was in my late 30s, I think late-ish 30s, as I'm like, really, is this it? Like, what is the purpose? I've just been on this like this hamster wheel running round and round and round and round and round, and sure, I've gotten a lot of money and I've had success, and everyone defined me as successful, but I don't feel happy. And I don't feel like you were saying, I don't have a sense of inner peace. I don't feel a sense of happiness. I feel, I didn't have any of those things. And so it's nice to hear that men are feeling that way too. And I know that you're saying that it's men's liberation, just like the women had this liberation. And I don't even know where women are right now because I think that, at least from my own experience, I mean, I just went in between. I took the middle path. So I basically didn't. I got off the corporate track and became a career coach so that I could do that part time and work with my family, and still have like I'm actually there for my family during the school hours, and then I'm also working part time so I can still have my foot into the corporate world, but not fully. I don't know what men do because when men have that similar trade off, like you have those areas from your 20s to your 30s where you're just working really hard and trying to make a huge dent and have impact. And then you have your 30s and your 40s where you're just basically trying to like stay afloat as you're keeping track of mortgage payments and college payments. And then after that, it's like, I don't know. Then it's like about giving back and figuring out. I'm trying to define what that 50 and above is for myself. But what is the equivalent for, like, that's my female version of looking at life. What is the male version of looking at life when you look at it in these big chunks of life, like decade to decade?
I don't think it needs to be defined by life stages. And I wish, I know, how you said, as people get older, a lot of the times they start to ask these questions. Believe me, not everybody does. Some people there is no change in their mentality and their level of thinking right from the time that they were 20 to the time that they were 60. They're still the same.
Hmm.
We know that we're starting to see increased incidences of bankruptcy, financial problems, depression, anxiety, substance abuse in the world. Why are we seeing that? Despite the fact that there is more and more information accessible to the average person than ever before,
Mm-hmm.
we are still seeing that there is a rise. Even in, like, I'll give you one statistic. America spends $60 billion a year on professional development, with no corresponding increase in
Hmm.
productivity, performance, engagement. In fact, litigation against employers, sickness, all of these, and disengagement is rising.
Hmm.
Why that happens is because information is not the answer. It's not the
Hmm.
full answer.
Hmm.
Because if information was the answer,
Mm-hmm.
and the average person has access to so much information, we should all be thin, we should all be healthy, we should all be rich,
Right.
we should all be happy, we should all be successful.
Right.
Why aren't we?
Yeah.
Did you know that 16%, I think in your country it's 15 or 16% of the population that retires in poverty? I mean, it's 50 million people that retiring, and in Australia it's not very different, because 80% of Australians retire with less than $100,000 after 30 or 40 years of being in the workforce.
Wow.
But the problem is not a financial one. The problem is deeper than that. It is more, it's behaviors, it's emotions, it's how we think. And most people are not thinking. You know, there's a saying by George Bernard Shaw. He says 2% of people think, 3% of people think they think, and 95% of people would rather die than think.
Wow. I guess you know what I think of, I just realized is I think I just live in a bubble. I probably live in a distorted bubble thinking that the world is different than it is. But most likely the way that you describe it is. I just don't get, I have uh, a bunch of friends that I met in Microsoft, and that's my touch point with what the world is like. All of them want to make impact. All of them want to have meaning in their lives. All of them are kind of changing and asking, how can I be the best version of myself? So I think I live in a distorted bubble, because what I'm hearing you say is when you go into the public and talk to like the average person, that's not the case. And even my clientele in coaching is usually professional people who, how many people can pay you like a bajillion bucks an hour? Not that many. So I think I have a distorted bubble. It's
No,
interesting
no,
to
you're
hear.
right. You're right. There's certainly, I think we are going to the next level of consciousness where more and more people are saying, I want meaning. I'm not
Yeah.
just about being in a corporate job and having financial security. I actually want meaning. The problem is, a lot of the time, all human beings know innately that we want to mean more. We want to do more, be
Mm-hmm.
more, have more. Innately, all of us know that. But the reality also is a lot of men ignore those feelings. So
Mm.
women tend to be a bit more evolved in that they're more in tune with what is going on inside of them,
Mm-hmm.
whereas men tend to dismiss it and they numb that feeling by drinking, by distracting themselves with sport or things like that. So
Mm.
what they're trying to do is they're numbing those senses.
Mm.
They don't want to tackle that issue,
Hmm.
and they don't have the skills to tackle that issue.
Hmm.
So, and that's why you're starting to see that, a lot of the times men will become financially successful, but they're unhappy. There's this grimness about them. There's just
Mm-hmm.
that passion's missing, because
Mm-hmm.
they're not doing what they really wanted to do. They're
Mm-hmm.
confused, but they don't want to tell anyone that they're confused, because there is so much ego tied with all the success that
Mm-hmm.
they've.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it's been a case of really understanding what does success look like, where a person is completely fulfilled. They're doing the work that really inspires them, wakes them up, but they're also achieving success for themselves and the people around them through that work.
Hmm.
Now, I believe if you're able to accomplish that, you're healthy, you're fit, you have meaningful relationships, you have financial security, you're making an impact, you're making a difference, you love what you do, you feel good, you show up well. Hey, that's success. I mean, if that isn't success, then what is?
Right. Yeah.
Now, it's not my definition of success. I say to people go, but isn't everyone's definition of success different? I said, yes, it is. Absolutely. But here's the underlying definition of success. Success is doing what you want, when you want, with who you want. Now, no one can do what they want, when they want, with who they want, all of the time. But it can be easily argued if CJ was spending 70 to 80% of her life doing what she wanted, when she wanted, with who she wanted, and Ron was spending only 20% of his life doing what he wanted, with when he wanted, with who he wanted, it could be easily argued that out of the two people, CJ is the most successful one,
Right.
because she has designed a life that is to her liking.
Right.
Now, what are the chances that you're going to design a life that is ideal if you don't even know what you value in life?
Right. Right. So it's
Right?
taking
So
the
the
time to
first
be introspective to understand what is it that you care about. What do you
Correct.
even
So
want?
that's
What
what
makes a good life? Yeah.
That's right. And so fundamentally, we have to go back and go, who are you? You are not your name, you're not your gender, you're not your nationality. I mean, you might look at me and go, I look a certain way, and you formed an impression about me based on how I show up.
Mm-hmm.
But who I am is not defined by how I look. It's not defined by the color of my skin because I didn't pick that.
Mm-hmm.
It is not defined by my gender. I didn't pick that.
Mm-hmm.
It should be defined by who I am at the most intimate level, and that is who I am in terms of my values, my strengths, my mission, my values, my passion, my purpose, and my goals. That's what really defines me as a person.
I'm laughing. Here's why I'm laughing because my son just finished applying for colleges, and they have a whole diversity in the United States now is a big question. So they're always asking, tell us about your diversity and what your stance is on diversity. And he wrote, you know, my gender, my eye color, the color of my hair, almost exactly what you said. It was a slight variation. He said the color of my hair, my ethnicity, my gender preferences. These aren't who I am. These are just things that I was born with. Who I am
Correct.
is who I am is never a fixed point. It's made up of all the choices that we make. It's the same kind of things are and this is like a high school kid. So he's saying it's the music that I listen to, it's the people that I hang out with, and the choices that I make day in day out. But he literally, out of the mouth of a 17-year-old. But that's why
That's
I'm
interesting.
laughing.
Wow.
Yeah. He kind of
He's an evolved person, clearly. But I think it's also good to have an underlying philosophy that becomes like the North Star for your life. I mean, it's good to have some sort of underlying philosophy because in the absence of an underlying philosophy, what are we basing our decisions on? External influences, what the media is saying, what other people's opinions are, and we being influenced to think a certain way because we don't know who we are.
Right.
And so if you have ever been in the presence of somebody and you didn't even speak to them, but you just knew you were in the presence of someone powerful, why did you feel that way? Because that quite possibly that person is very centered and aligned, and they have consciously or unconsciously aligned their values, their beliefs, their strengths, their purpose, their passion in a way that you just sense their strength. They're centered. Whereas a lot of people drift in life. They're wishy-washy. They don't know. They're awkward in social situations because they don't know who they are. So they're constantly trying to fit in. And you know, you can be let me use this analogy. You can be the best ship in the water. You can be state of the art. You can have all the best technology in the world. But if you don't know where you're going and you don't have a fixed destination in mind, you are still going to sink. And but here is the thing. How do you define that destination? It's not just having a destination for the sake of having a destination. I'll give you an example. A lot of the young men that come to my events, they ring me and I say, what do you want? That's my first question. What do you want in life? The number of young men that say to me, I want to be a ladies' man.
Okay, sorry.
Followed by, I want a private jet.
Right, okay.
Followed by, I want $1 million.
Oh,
They're
my
the three
goodness.
most common responses from young men. And then I say to them, why do you want it? And they can't tell me. And I know why they want it because they know that that's going to make them matter. Ultimately, every human being, male or female, we want to matter. But it's making them understand how they can matter. Because once you keep going down the wrong path, sometimes we have limited time on this planet, you see. If you spend a lot of time making bad decisions and wrong decisions because you don't know who you are, you can't get that time back. And
Yeah.
it amazes me that people don't value their time because time is what life is made up of. And so you keep going down the wrong path, then you turn 55 and then you realize that that's what you were meant to do.
Right.
You can still change paths,
Yeah.
but guess what? You now have limited time compared to
Yes.
what you could have if you had just taken the time to pause and reconnect with yourself and asked yourself some really critical questions that are conducive to life success.
Don't remind me about that. It's so true. It's so true. Okay, so folks who actually want to join your program, do you have an online version of the program, and how do they find you and all that good stuff?
I think it's premature for people to just sign up a program. I would encourage people to just go and have a look on my website, thesuccessfulmale.com, thesuccessfulmale.com. Join our Facebook group. It's called We Are Successful Men. We put out daily content. Monday, we talk about mindset. Tuesday, we talk about leadership and influence. Wednesday, we talk about wealth and business. Thursday, we talk about life success. Friday, we talk about style, dating, grooming, and attraction. Saturday, we talk about productivity and performance. And Sunday, we talk about spiritual growth. Why? Because we're trying to give people all aspects
The
of
holistic
success.
piece. Yeah.
So whether you're 15 years old or you're 70 years old, it doesn't matter. If you're a man that wants more out of life, you are teachable, you're open to developing yourself, come into a group, I promise you're going to love it.
Thank you. So we've been talking to Ron Malhotra about his program, The Successful Male. Thank you so much. That was incredibly interesting.
It means so much to me that you're listening to the show. Would love your support in any way by giving me comments below, or to subscribe to the show, or share the show with friends. Thank you again for your support. Love and blessings.